Less than 10% of viewers will actually have the attention span to watch till the end of this video, which is ironic because the people that inevitably will click off are the people that needed this video the most. My name is Zain Asif. I'm a third year medical student studying at the University of Manchester, and today I've created a 3-part full practical and realistic guide on how to master focus and stay focused for long hours. This is the one guide that you will need to become a highly focused individual, especially if you're learning, working, studying, all of it. It took me over 13 hours, 4 full books, and countless podcasts, all of it to come up with this. So I can honestly guarantee that if you listen and take action right now, because yes, this guide is filled with actionable, practical things that you can do right now while you watch, I can guarantee that you will overcome your distractions and learn every crucial trigger there is to get into that focused flow state. Jumping right in, the first practical action that you can take right now is to full screen this video. No looking around, no looking at your phone, just look straight into my eyes, almost squint. It's almost a bit weird, but act as if we're actually having an in-person, present conversation. Implementing this will train your mind to focus in real time as we speak about it. And is also linked to one of the later steps of the guide. A quick aside on mindset. We need to get away from the idea that focus is something you have or don't have. Because I don't care who you are, focus is absolutely something that you can develop. That is the whole reason that I'm making this video. It's selfish. I wanted to take my own focus to the next level and learn to get into those focused flow states faster and with more intentionality. There's 3 major steps to becoming a highly focused individual, in my humble opinion. You can think of it as level 1, 2, and 3 that you progress through on your journey to becoming more focused. Step 1, prepare for focus. Step 2, hack the focus, and step 3, excel with focus. Step 1, prepare for focus. Let's start with preparing for focus. Look, focus isn't just built when you're working. You have to lay the foundation before you start. You can't just magically jump into the flow state and focus for hours without some level of prep, and that is what this step is about. These are the minimum requirements. Part 1, remove the external triggers. A few months ago, I was learning about kidney dysfunctions and I was finally understanding it. I actually got excited while I was piecing it together, and all of a sudden, my phone buzzed. It was a lecture time change, so I picked it up, harmless, scrolled into the email, and while I was reading, my friend started sending me a ton of messages. So I was like, okay, no, let me focus. I need to get some work done. My phone kept buzzing, kept looking over. What if it's urgent? And I just went, okay, let me just pick it up. And I started picking it up and scrolling and looking at the messages, replying to them, replying to someone else. And while I was replying to someone else, I waited and went on TikTok. And before I knew it, it had been more than 45 minutes. It always starts with a harmless distraction that turns into a full spiraling binge that then rips you away from your task. And whenever I had my phone with me while I was studying, it never mattered how motivated or disciplined I was always checking messages or scrolling or something. The more we just react to these external triggers, the more we're training our brain to be in this never-ending loop, and the harder it is to get what we planned done. And so, this is the second action. Go on your phone and disable notifications for all the apps that you get them from the most. Do it right now. Just take 2 minutes to set it all up. Go on settings, manage notifications, and click on each app: Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, new messages from everyone except 2 or 3 important people. Put everything on do not disturb. And not just for studying, just have it like this from now on. I can go on a tangent about how attention is the most valuable asset, and that all the times that notification interrupted the sweet, genuine conversation that you were having with your mom. But it's not even that. Just respect yourself to realize what's repeatedly happening here. Every time something ploops on your phone and you click on it, you're giving it control. You're telling it, yeah, I don't value my time. You're free to disrupt and disturb whatever I'm doing with the smallest, randomest crap notification. So please, I know this is a big deal to some, it might be obvious to others, but make a start to redeeming that short, destroyed attention span and disable notifications. And yes, the ones on your desktop and Mac as well. For me, YouTube was one of my biggest distractions, so I downloaded this extension called DF2. I'll link it. But what it essentially does is that it removes all the titles, thumbnails, everything that could possibly pull you in. And genuinely, when I did that, it reduced my distraction time to almost nothing. And you know what? I noticed that I would swipe away from my work, click on YouTube, only to see that there was nothing there. And as soon as I saw a blank screen, I was like, okay, no, this is pointless. Let me just snap out of it. And I went back to work. So take the small step even as an experiment, and trust me, you'll truly realize that turning notifications off and putting limits on your socials is not a big deal at all. And you'll start to only go on your phone when you plan to and need to, and as a result, save years of your life. By the way, these external triggers can also be people, like family. So if you're at home, tell your brothers and parents that, okay, I just need to go focus for a couple hours on my work. Do you guys need me for anything? Make sure you tell them that I don't want to be interrupted, for example, till like 5 p.m. because people and family are a big factor that take us away from focus, but they never do it on purpose. They want the best for us. So make it clear to them in a nice, compassionate way that, you know what, I'm having a tough time focusing while studying, so can I just have a few hours of solitude? That's the only way. Part 2, schedule the work. People sabotage their own ability to focus. If you just sit there, wasting mental energy, thinking and deciding what to do, you'll lose concentration in 30 seconds. You'll start to work on something, then realize, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to reply to this email. And you'll start jumping from task to task, not getting anything substantial done. So we need to organize ourselves, especially as students. We need to learn to run our life using systems. I only spend 5 minutes. 5 minutes to plan out all my work, and then my brain runs on autopilot, which makes focusing so easy. Just make a weekly task list, everything that you have to get done that week, and then each day, sit on the toilet or on the way to uni and transfer tasks from that list onto the free slots of your calendar. That's it. It literally takes 2 minutes, and then you actually do them. It's all scheduled and time boxed out, and then you don't have to think, oh, I have to do this and this after. You don't have to stress at all. You can just follow what's on your calendar. However, the mistake that most people make, and the reason that you don't want to make that calendar right now, is because you're treating each task as this set in stone thing that if one thing isn't done, then everything else will fall apart. No, the calendar is just there to help you. It's there to act as a guide, as an inspiration for how you want your day to run. It's just there to free your mind of the tension and give it space to focus. It's not God, it's a guide. And so the next practical action is for you to make a list of all the tasks that you have to complete this week. Make it now. It takes 5 seconds. Literally go on your phone and note down all the homeworks, the studying, the topics that you have to study. It's a tiny list. And then open Google Calendar or Apple Calendar and start planning your day out. Try it with even just one day. Add some recurring events on there like dinner, lunch, gym, family time, plans with friends, whatever it is. And in the free spaces you have in there, which you'll realize you don't have that many of, add in the weekly tasks that you want to get done today. I only started scheduling strictly like this year, and the weeks and the days I don't do it, I noticeably see my focus levels just fall to the ground. It's because at one point I have so many different things that I could be doing, from YouTube scripts to actually studying to making TikToks. And that's how it is for us students. There's not that many deadlines that keep us on track like there are for people on jobs that actually work. Being on top of revision isn't a deadline. There's no one checking on us, and our monkey brain knows that we don't have this deadline, that we don't need to do anything in particular right now. So help yourself focused with your own time management. You'll stay on track like 80% of the time, and the thing is, the more focused writing sessions, the more studying sessions you do, the more motivated you'll become to get into that flow state. Part 3, build the perfect routine. To make the most of the actual work session and to keep on getting into that focused state every day, we need to do a series of familiar things that train our mind before we work, i.e. a ritual or routine. And yes, doing the same thing does condition your mind over time to get into focus, but it does something else as well. It makes a difference in the short term as well, because having a routine changes the way you think about the work on a deeper level. For me, what I do is quite simple. I go to the same library, grab a black coffee or latte, sit down to work, get everything out on the table, all ready, set to go, switch my phone off, chuck the phone in my bag, put the bag away, say a small prayer in my head, say 1, 2, 3, and go. Start without thinking any further. And most of this stuff is done every time I sit down to write a script or do a serious study session, because I don't treat work as a random activity. I treat it as a mission, and by showing dedication to it this way, you're more likely to get into that focus mode. One thing though, make sure your routine decreases the friction for you to start the work, and also study in an inspiring place. Green plants, natural lights, all of it helps. For me, I was in the library, so I was surrounded by books of shelves and actually other dedicated students, so a pretty inspiring atmosphere. And I know finding that effective routine takes a bit of experimentation, but I assure you it's worth it. To focus deeply is a big deal, and providing your mind with structure and showing commitment like this will make it easier and easier for you to slip into the flow states where you can do the things that actually matter. Step 2, hack the focus. After preparing for the focused work comes hacking the focus. This is step 2. Now we get into the work session. Once you've removed distractions, set a plan for yourself, and done a basic routine to get your mind into a focused state, then the question becomes, how do you maintain that focused state for longer than the 20 seconds that your tiny attention span can handle? Because now you're in a good environment. You have no external triggers, no notifications, you have a set plan that you have to get done, so why can you still not focus? Well, it's because contrary to popular belief, only 10% of distractions are from external sources. The rest are from internal triggers. I want you to remember this. All human behavior is motivated by a desire to escape discomfort. That's what you're doing when you start thinking about random stuff during the work, or you leave the work to go get a snack, or you start picking up your phone again after a few minutes. It's what you're doing when you feel stressed, when you feel overwhelmed, when you're feeling bored about the work. The reason varies, but what's clear is that your mind is helping you procrastinate to get you away from the uncomfortable phase of getting into that flow state. And that's what this step will help you master. This is how you practically push past that resistance in your mind and hack the focus. Part 1, flow state. Fight the loading phase. First, let me break down what the flow state is, because as much as it is a magical state, it's not this impossible thing to achieve. I can almost guarantee that you've all been in it before. I want you to remember the last time that you were hyper productive, totally absorbed in what you were doing. That was flow. Flow is just effortless effort. Everything around you disappears. You're just being propelled through the work. Small things can, pop up from time to time, but mostly you're writing from one sentence after the other, hitting one problem after the other. And the thing is, most of you can attest to this. When you're in flow, it doesn't feel like anything special. You're just doing deeply focused work and nothing else in your mind is happening. Only when you come out of it do you realize, oh, that was sick. I didn't even realize it had been that long. I got so much done. So what I want to make clear is that it's not this enchanted thing. It's something all of us can do every single day. And the best part is what I've learned from the research of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow science, and recent biologists like Stephen Kotler, is that flow isn't this thing where you're either in the zone or out of it. It's a 4-step gradual cycle, where the first step of the cycle is a step of struggle. The loading phase. It happens when you first start the task. There's cortisol and norepinephrine released, and it makes you feel discomfort. It makes you squirm. It makes you want to leave the task that you're doing. And honestly, when I read that, I was like, yes, thank God. So okay, that's the first step. There should be struggle. Me not being able to focus and actually getting distracted in the first part of my studying is something that's supposed to happen. We're just supposed to push past that resistance though. Not being able to focus and my mind distracting me doesn't mean I'm incapable of focus. It's just how it is. That's the first part, and our job is to get past that. Then the second phase is release. As you persist, your brain produces more dopamine, which enhances focus and concentration, and essentially pops you out of that struggle, no motivation phase. And then you're in flow. Huge release of chemicals like dopamine, anandamide, serotonin, all which are associated with things like, with states like the runner's high, all of it increasing your pattern recognition, increasing learning speeds, and once that's done, then you're in recovery. And yes, I can talk about each step in detail, but I want to put the most attention on that initial struggle phase, which can last up to 25 minutes. That loading phase is where most people spend the entirety of their working lives, dropping in and out of the first few minutes of the flow cycle, not being able to persist long enough. And the old flow researchers just tell us to push through and persist, but that isn't always practical, is it? To just push through the work. So here are the 2 practical actions I want you to take to learn to push past that loading phase and to get into the flow state. Number 1 is simple. Have a post-it note and a pen next to you while you work. And as soon as you see yourself drift away from the work, just stay and write down the sensation that made you want to leave the work, even if it's just a word or two. I don't know where to start. I don't know anything. I'm too tired. Make it specific. Even if you're about to give into the distraction, just write it down. Because the better you become at noticing the behavior, the better you'll manage it over time. And yeah, it's a bit extra to grab a post-it note and write what you're thinking down. But honestly, just do it a few times. I've had a post-it note next to me for the last 4 weeks now, and for me, I most commonly stop pushing with the work when I've just finished a paragraph or just finished studying a section of the chapter, and I don't know what exactly to do next, like what my next specific step is, and that's when I get distracted. And I was only able to figure this out and fight against the internal distractions after I identified it. Only then can you pause and reframe the thought. If you're getting a bunch of questions wrong and you feel frustrated, just pause and think, okay, getting questions wrong is part of the process. It's good that I care this much about the revision that I actually get frustrated about getting stuff wrong. It means I'm stressed because I actually care about this exam. And once you start seeing the same recurring thought again and again, you start to thinking, bro, this is stupid. I don't even need to reframe this. I can just push past this. I know what it is. And number 2, the second action to take to get past that struggle phase is Neil Ayer's 10-minute rule. See, you've already written down what was making you want to leave the work and go on your phone or whatever, and it's not getting out of your head. So you think, okay, cool. I can give into that distraction, but not right now. I can give into it in 10 minutes, but not before then. After 10 minutes, I can go get that snack, I can check my phone, do whatever I wanted to do. And what that does is that it gives you autonomy. You decide. The mistake that most people make is that they go too hard with the full abstinence. I'll never eat sugar again. I will never go on my phone for the whole day now. I'll be 100% focused. Instead of thinking like, okay, look, I'm an adult. I can choose what I want to do. and I can choose right now to not get off track for the next 10 minutes. After that, I'm free to do what I want to do. And the thing is, you rarely do the thing after 10 minutes. It was a moment of weakness. You've thought about it and now you're back into focus. If you just gave into the feeling of being bored or stressed and went on your phone as a coping mechanism, you're immediately giving relief. Whereas if you follow the 10-minute rule, you're teaching yourself to delay gratification. You're actually telling yourself, okay, I have the power. See, I'm not addicted. As long as I use these practices, I am in control. Part 2, the power of sitting there. But remember, the goal is not to reach the flow state. The goal has always been to train your mind to combat distractions, stay focused, and get what you plan to do on your calendar done. The truth is, what I've learned is that you're not always going to get into that perfect, nice flow state where you're completely focused, even if you try really, really hard and sit there for ages. It's like what Steven Pressfield says in The War of Art. Writing isn't the hard part. The hard part is sitting down to write. It's about getting your butt in the chair. And before we continue with this video, could you do me a little favor? Could you unfull screen, scroll a little down, subscribe, like, spam the comments a little, indicate to the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying the video. I don't think I've ever said that in the middle of a video before, but I truly think that the lessons and the practical tips within this guide has the potential to truly change the way someone works, studies, and lives their life. And obviously, once you're done with this, scroll back up, full screen the video again, and let's get back into it. Step 3. Excelling with focus. Now that we've talked about the practical aspects of getting past the things that take us away from focus and the ways to beat that struggle phase, we can now finally talk about the ways to get better at focusing, all the specific triggers that can get us into the flow state faster and for longer, where your learning is 10x, 50x, 100x, and you're actually excelling. See, the reason this happens is because flow is the one time, the one instance where our body generates this cocktail of feel-good chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and anandamide. When we move into flow, we take in more information and we pay more attention to that information, so our understanding goes up. We find faster connections between this new information and the old existing ideas we have, so encoding and pattern recognition increases as well. And the more feel-good chemicals that are present in your brain, the more likely that new information is going from short-term holding to long-term storage. With those chemicals, they put post-it notes, they put actual signs next to the new information that you have, telling your brain, okay, this is important, this was a high-yield experience, take this. That's why learning improves so much when you improve your focus and get into that flow state. These are certain factors, certain preconditions that trigger your mind to get into that flow state, and they've been the focal point of flow research for the last decade. Big scientists and people from the Flow Genome Project have all pioneered on various studies testing CEOs, athletes, regular people as well, students, and have all, in a very short period of time, improved their focus levels between up to 35 to 80%. And they did this using certain flow triggers. And in this step, I'm gonna go through the 4 most important ones that I found to be most impactful for me and for the people in the studies. The first basic trigger is having clear goals. There's a reason that we put the practical action of making a calendar and scheduling your work in so early on in the guide. It's because it's the one thing that creates singular focus. So that when you start to study or learn a topic for 2 hours, for example, you can devote absolutely everything to it. There's no confusion of, I don't know what to do. You need to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. But on a wider level, you also need clarity on the bigger goals. Even though I'm not one of those people that regularly writes my goals down, in my head, I actively plan in the space of a few months to have 2 to 3 big milestones that I'm always working on. I think in the summers this month, it was to post consistently and create good content on YouTube. It was, a lot of it was to do with family time and friends. And the last milestone I had was to do with fitness as well. And then when I'm back in med school, it would be to focus on 3rd year, start on the USMLE, and other things will move down the priority line. But I'm always clear on the big milestones, the overarching things that I'm working towards, and everything on my calendar and the lists of tasks that I have is to do with those big milestones. And as long as you have that level of clarity, whatever you're doing, you'll be able to focus on with absolute certainty. The second trigger is building intrigue. The human mind wants to learn and grow. But if we find something boring, our brain won't anticipate future reward, so it'll produce less dopamine and will be less likely to get into a flow state. And yeah, you can try and gamify it and try to find scores and points and ways to make the work more fun, but to truly enjoy it, you need to find the intrigue in it. To be honest, I've always enjoyed studying and learning. It's because I'm naturally quite good at asking questions about very specific things and finding the kinks and the faults in processes and arguments. And when you do that, when you engage your mind like that, almost everything becomes more intriguing. One thing I do to build intrigue is that quite early on I realized that if I'm gonna stay awake in half the classes I have, I'm gonna either need to A, find the interesting points and the things that interest me and then ask questions about it, or B, this is a bit weird, but find the errors and kinks in the way it's being taught. See, I think most classes are too slow. And naturally what happens for me, and I'm sure what happens for a lot of people, is that we jump to the next thing that they're gonna say and start thinking about the conclusions that they're gonna make of their argument before they've even started talking about the topic. But once you actively start to do this and jump to those conclusions with like intention, okay, I'm gonna try and figure out what he's gonna say next, you start to think, how is this guy not making sense? If they explain something, then I'm thinking, okay, how is this gonna actually help me learn the topic better? Is it gonna actually feed into any of my older ideas? What's happening here is that my brain is being critical and it's grabbing onto the loose ends of information that I'm getting from the professor and finding ways to tie them up. And this nerdy analyzing thing I do, questioning the way things are being taught, finding gaps and questioning them, it unintentionally grabs my focus and prolongs it till the end of the lecture. Because I'm invested. I'm invested in tying up the loose ends, proving myself right, proving something else wrong. And this sort of stuff genuinely builds intrigue. It's what you have to do on your own when you're studying as well. Part 3 or trigger 3, the 4% challenge to skill ratio. There's 22 flow triggers that lead you to the flow state, and I can put them all up here. But this one, according to the science, is the one that has given the most results and improved people's focus the most. When psychologists study flow, what they found is that there needs to be a perfect balance between the challenge of the tasks and the skill level that you're at. If the task is too easy, then you'll get bored. If the task is too challenging, then you'll get frustrated and give up. So the key is to push yourself only a little bit beyond your comfort zone. How much beyond the comfort zone? 4%. Challenge yourself 4% more than usual every time you study. In the simplest way, practically this means understanding, reading, and making questions on more pages of the chapter in the same amount of time. If your usual speed of revising and understanding is around 10 pages an hour, then aim for 10.4 pages in that same hour, whilst maintaining the same quality of learning throughout. That's it, 10.4 pages, just half a page more. That's a good challenge, isn't it? It's enough to keep you on track, but it isn't big enough that makes you want to give up. And then when you get 10.4 pages comfortably in that hour, then you move it up 4% more. The trick is to keep challenging yourself bit by bit, but do it just enough so that you don't get bored and that you don't feel overwhelmed. I like the quote, grow comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. And the side note is that 4% sounds pretty small, but after a few times of getting it, because of compound interest, it will actually become harder and harder to do if you aren't in your flow state. So from my experience, getting into that flow state is extremely necessary for you to even accomplish that 4% more after a certain number of times that you've done it. Capitalize on passion. Screw the 1% improvements. And this is where my experience comes in. The trigger to meet passion is the fastest way to become laser focused, get into flow states, and learn skills and things 30 times, 300 times, 3,000 times faster than you always do. There's this rule I've been hearing my whole life. If you get 1% better every single day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times as good as the thing. And even though in logic it makes sense, I've always hated this rule. It's the most intimidating, annoying concept because it means that in order to get good at something, I have to keep on doing the thing again and again and again without being bored, without losing interest for the thing. And that to me is always just so impossible. If I'm trying to get good at something, then chances are 7 out of 10 times of me doing that thing, I will either not do it to the full degree, I'll procrastinate too much, and 3 times that I actually do the thing, if I only get 1% better, that's nothing. It's barely any progress. So I say screw 1% baby improvements. Learn to block out distractions, hack the focus as we've discussed throughout the guide, and aim for extremely high levels of improvements in short time. And do this by capitalizing on the times that you have passion for the thing that you want to do and just go all out with it. The times that I've actually gotten good at something like editing videos, studying smart, coding websites, writing articles, all of it didn't just happen with 1% improvements. When I mastered those skills or did really well with an exam, I worked on them relentlessly and tried to improve myself each time I did them. 30%, 300%, 3000%. When I learned to edit, I didn't just think, okay, let me schedule 30 minutes of editing 4 times a week for the next 4 months. No, if I did that, I would get bored and give up in 2 weeks. Instead, I looked around it, and the day I felt like getting my shit together, the day I felt excited and passionate about YouTube, I capitalized on it. I made a video in 1 day and edited that video for 30 hours straight in the next 3 days. Literally learning everything that I need to know about editing. I spent 13 hours that first day learning how to edit and actually applying it. And the thing is, that first video is still the highest viewed video on this channel. The same thing applies to scoring highly in exams. Whenever I've done well, I've revised effectively like a maniac the weeks beforehand. And yes, you do need repetition throughout the year. But my aim is always to make the revision so effective and then encode the concept so well so that I need less repetitions when I'm studying. Purely because I know that if I schedule 6 revisions in for the next few months, I know I'm not going to do half of those. So capitalize on passion and use it as that trigger to easily get you into the flow state. Do all the things in a time where your mind can easily disregard the distractions and is interested in what you're learning. The bonus step 4, recover with focus. Now that we've understood so much about how to focus, a very important step in sustaining this focus and to keep getting back into this focus even in the same day is the recovery phase. If you remember it was the last stage of the flow cycle, and honestly, I always sucked at doing this. Because when you're in flow, super focused on the work, you feel unstoppable and then poof, it's gone. You just lose energy, lose track of the work, and it's annoying because you were doing so well and now it's just gone. You can't get back into it. But that's just the natural cycle of flow. It doesn't last forever. According to the science, it completely drops after 4 hours. If you keep pushing yourself like that till the end, there's a big calm down where no good ideas can happen. And after that huge energy expenditure, we cannot risk not giving the recovery phase time. And I think I need to get better at this as well, because you need to treat it seriously. We can't just be going on our phones randomly. Because from Cal Newport's book Deep Work, we know that it's not the act of using the phone that's gonna decrease the strength of the focus muscle. It's the constant switching from low stimuli, high value tasks like reading a book to high stimuli, low value tasks like scrolling on TikTok. That's what damages the focus muscles. So the practical action is that when I still have to focus, get back into the work after half an hour, an hour break, I spend that time spending time with family, friends, read a namaz, go on a walk, do these sorts of things, but at all costs, I try and avoid my phone and socials. Because firstly, you won't be able to consolidate as well what you've learned in the previous flow cycle, and you did so much because you were learning so quickly. So why waste that? And second, you won't be able to get back into the flow cycle if you don't dislodge your attention completely and treat active recovery seriously. There's other things to do with active recovery as well, like cold showers, sleep, exercise, all of it helps, but I usually do that at the end of the day when I'm done with everything. If you've watched the video so far, thank you. I know a guide like this doesn't solve every problem that you have because most of them are personal to you. So I want to give you my email and my Instagram. Send me a message or email with any specific niche issue that you have that's blocking your focus. We can even set up a Zoom call where we talk about it and I help you create a calendar, because I literally did this only a few months ago. And I'm saying this because in the past I have mentored 2 to 3 people from this YouTube channel. I've given them my personal numbers. We've talked in detail about how to improve their studying, their focus. I'm still in touch with a lot of them. And it's because I know that guides and these videos don't 100% help someone unless they proactively apply it in their life. And sometimes people just need help with that. So I'm more than happy to give personalized help, all free of course, whatever you need. But all you need to do is message me first and take that first step. Other than improving your focus, the practical techniques that make your studying more effective come from learning to learn efficiently. And that's what I go through in this video right here. In this video, I go through all the ways that I've learned to become more efficient and effective with my learning in med school, and all the ways that you can as well. I've got some really good feedback about this video, so I know that it is practically very helpful. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this full guide was useful. Please drop comments below telling me what you think about this full guide, whether it was actually helpful, what sort of stuff you want to see from me in the future. It really helped. And yeah, leave a like, check my TikTok out if you haven't yet. I've put out some big bangers on there, and I will see you in the next one.